Hello everybody and welcome to chapter 3 of the book of Shemot as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 3 has 22 verses and it's found in the Koren Sachs Chumash on page 364 and 365. In this chapter we read about how Moshe is shepherding in Midian when he notices something strange. There's a bush on fire, but the bush is not being consumed by the fire. He turns aside, and that moment of curiosity changes history. Hashem speaks, revealing himself as the God of the forefathers and declaring that he has seen the suffering in Egypt. Moshe is chosen to confront Pharaoh and lead the people out. Moshe resists again and again, questioning himself, his mission, and God's name. Ultimately, Hashem promises redemption and outlines the plan of confrontation, miracles, resistance, and ultimate release. But this isn't the end of the conversation. It will continue into chapter 4 as well. With that introduction in mind, let us turn to chapter 3, verse 1. Moshe haya roa es son Yisro chosno. Moshe was shepherding the sheep of Yisro, his father-in-law. Kohen Midian, the priest of Midian. Vayinhag es hatson achar hamidbar. He guided the sheep far into the midbar, far into the desert, into the wilderness. Vayavo el har ha'elohim choreva. And he came to Chorev, the mountain of God. And our rabbis point out that Moshe must have been drawn in the direction of the Midbar, because that is ultimately where he is going to be leading the Jewish people. That is going to be where they receive the Torah. And in fact, Chorev is another name for Mount Sinai. So he has led his sheep, whether knowingly or unknowingly, in the direction of the exact place where he is going to stand in around a year's time when he is leading the Jewish people to receive the Torah at Mount Sinai. Verse 2, Vayera malach Adonai elav balabas eish mitoch hasneh. An angel of Hashem appeared to him in flames of fire from the midst of a bush. The word for the bush is sneh, which shares the same root as Sinai or Sinai. Vayar, and he saw, Moshe saw, vehine hasneh boyer ba'esh. He saw that the bush was ablaze with fire, was burning with fire. V'hasneh einenu ukal. But the bush was not consumed. Verse 3, Vayomer Moshe, Moshe said, Asura na, ve'er'eh es hamareh hagadol hazeh. I must turn aside to see this wonder. Madua lo yivar hasneh. Why does the bush not burn up? And it's that act of paying attention to something significant that ignites, no pun intended, the conversation between Moshe and Hashem. Verse 4, Vayar Adonai ki os. And Hashem saw that he had turned to look. Vayikra elav Elohim mitoch hasneh. And Hashem called to him from within the bush. Vayomer, and he said, Moshe, Moshe. He calls him twice by his name. Vayomer hineni. And Moshe answered, Here I am. Verse 5, Vayomer, and he said, Hashem said, Al tikrav halom, do not come close. Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha. Remove the shoes from your feet. Ki hamakom asher ata omed alav, because the place that you are standing on, admas kodeshu, is holy ground. Verse 6, Vayomer, and he said, Anochi Elohei avicha. I am the God of your father. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov. The God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Vayaster Moshe panav. Then Moshe hid his face, ki yarei mehabit el ha'elohim, for he was afraid to look at Hashem. Verse 7, Vayomer Adonai, Hashem said, Ra'o ra'isi es ani asher b'Mitzrayim. I have seen my people suffering in Egypt. Ves tza'akasam shamati mipnei nogsav. And I have heard its outcry because of the oppressors. Ki yadati es machovav. And I know their anguish. And our rabbis point out here that there are three critical verbs here. Ra'isi, to see, shomati, to hear, and yodati, to know. And these different stages represent the way in which all of us process information. First and foremost, our eyes will see and notice something. Our ears will hear something, and our brain will compute the information that we're receiving from those two senses, and the absorption of information and process in that way is called yediyah, is called knowledge. Verse 8, Va'ered lahatzilo miad Mitzrayim. I shall descend, I shall go down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, ulahaloso min haaretz hahi, and to bring them up from that land, el eretz torva urchava, to a land that is good and spacious, El Eretz Zavas Chalav Udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey, El Makom Knaani, to the place of the Knaani, to Canaanites, V'achiti, the Hittites, V'haimori, and the Amorites, V'haprizi, and the Perizzites, V'achivi, and the Hivites, V'ayevusi, and the Jebusites. Verse 9, V'ata, and now, Hinei Tzakas B'nei Yisrael Ba Elai, the cry of the Israelites has reached me, V'gam Ra'isi Es halachatz, Asher Mitzrayim lochatzim osam, and I have seen the oppression and the stress that the Egyptians subject them to. Verse 10, Va'ata, so now, Lacha, go, Ve'eshlachacha el Paro, I am sending you to Pharaoh, V'hotzi esami v'nei Yisrael mi'Mitzrayim, to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Verse 11, Vayomer Moshe el ha'Elohim, and Moshe said to Hashem, Mi anochi, who am I, ki elech el Paro, that I should go to Pharaoh, V'chi otzi es b'nei Yisrael mi'Mitzrayim, to bring the Israelites, the Bnei Israel, out of Egypt. Verse 12, Vayomer, and he said, Hashem said, Ki ehyeh imach, I will be with you. V'zeh lecha ha'os ki anochi shlachticha, and this is the sign that I have sent you, B'hotziacha es ha'am mi'Mitzrayim, that when you bring the nation out of Mitzrayim, Tavdun es ha'Elohim al hahar hazeh, you will come to serve Hashem upon this very mountain. Verse 13, Vayomer Moshe el ha'Elohim, and Moshe said to Hashem, Hinei anochi va el b'nei Yisrael, when I go to the b'nei Yisrael, va'amarti lahem, and I say to them, Elohei avoseichem shlachani aleichem, that your father's God has sent me to you, va'amru li, they will ask me, Ma shemo, what is his name? Ma omar aleihem, what shall I say to them? Verse 14, Vayomer Elohim el Moshe, and Hashem said to Moshe, Ehyeh asher ehyeh. He gives Moshe one of his names, which we can translate as I will be what I will be, or I shall be as I shall be. But this is a promise from the Almighty to Moshe, that he will be with the Jewish people when they come out of Mitzrayim, but he will also be with us throughout the unfolding of all of history. This is the guarantee and this is the promise that he makes to Moshe. Vayomer, and he said, Kos somar levnei Yisrael, this is what you shall tell the Bnei Yisrael, Ehyeh shlachani aleichem, I shall be, has sent me to you. That Ehyeh, the name of Hashem, has sent me to you. Verse 15, Vayomer od Elohim el Moshe, Hashem said further to Moshe, Kos somar el Bnei Yisrael, this is what you shall say to the children of Israel, Adonai Elohei avoseichem, Hashem, the God of your fathers, Elohei Avraham, the God of Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, the God of Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, the God of Yaakov, Shlachani aleichem, has sent me to you. Zeh shmi la'olam, this is my name forever, V'zeh zichri l'dor dor, and this is how I will be remembered through the ages. Verse 16, Lech, go, v'asafta es ziknei Yisrael, and gather the elders of Yisrael, v'amarta aleihem, and say to them, Adonai Elohei avoseichem, Hashem, the God of your fathers, Nira Elai, has appeared to me. Elohei Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Lemor, the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, saying, Pakadati eschem, I have surely remembered you. Ve'es ha'asui lachem b'Mitzrayim, and I have seen what is being inflicted upon you in Egypt. And these elders of Yisrael will be the teachers of the Israelites in Egypt, because even though they have been subject to slavery, nevertheless, the education has never ceased amongst the people. And they will know that Hashem has promised earlier in the Torah, earlier in our chronology, he has promised to take the Israelites out of slavery and lead them to the land of Canaan. So they will be expecting this. Verse 17, Va'omar, and I have said, A'aleh eschem me'ani Mitzrayim, I shall bring you up from the affliction of Egypt, El Eretz HaKanani, to the land of the Canaanite, V'achiti and the Hittite, V'haimori and the Amorite, V'haprizi and the Perizzite, V'achivi the Hivite, V'ayevusi and the Jebusite, El Eretz Zavas Chalav Udvash, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Verse 18, V'shamu l'kolecha, they will listen to you. Uvasa ata v'ziknei Yisrael el melech Mitzrayim. Then you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt, V'amartem elav, and then you will say to him, Adonai Elohei ha'Ivrim, Hashem, the God of the Hebrews, Nikra aleinu, has revealed himself to us. V'ata, and now, Nelcha na derech shloshes yamim bamidbar. Let us go now for a 3-day journey into the desert, v'nizbachal Adonai Eloheinu, and let us sacrifice to Hashem, our God. And it's just so interesting that he is being instructed here to say to Pharaoh that this is only going to be a temporary measure, which they know is never going to be temporary. But this is a commensurate punishment, a midah keneged midah, a measure for measure response to the fact that Pharaoh had initially said to the Israelites that they can settle temporarily in the land of Egypt, and then subsequently stripped them of their rights until finally they became slaves. So just like Pharaoh had gone from temporary to permanent, so too here, Moshe should say to Pharaoh that they will go temporarily, when really it's going to be a permanent solution. Verse 19, Vani odati, but I know, ki lo yitein eschem melech Mitzrayim la'aloch. I know that the king of Egypt will not allow you to go, v'lo biyad chazaka, except through a strong hand. Verse 20, v'sholachti es yadi, v'kesi es Mitzrayim. I shall stretch out my hand, and I shall strike Egypt, b'chol niflosai, with all my wonders, asher e'aseh b'kirbo, that I shall perform in its midst. V'achreichen yishalach eschem, and after that he will send you out. Verse 21, v'nosati eschein ha'am hazeh be'enei Mitzrayim. I shall grant this people favor in the eyes of Egypt, v'haya ki selechun lo selchu rekam, so that it will happen that when you go, you will not go empty-handed. And finally, verse 22, V'sho'ala isha mishchenta, every woman shall ask her neighbor, umigoras besa, and from the one who lives in her house, klei chesef, silver vessels, uchlei zahav, golden vessels, usmalos, and clothing, v'samtem al benechem, and you shall put these on your sons, v'al benoseichem, and on your daughters, v'nitzaltem es Mitzrayim, and you shall empty out Egypt, as a consequence of all that they have done to make you suffer over all these years. And that brings us to the end of chapter 3. In chapter 4, the conversation will continue where Moshe expresses doubt after doubt that he is going to be a suitable leader to lead the Jewish people, but we will see that eventually he agrees. I look forward to learning that chapter with you. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.